here. Greetings, folks. It is, let's see, it's the 14th. I should know that because my birthday is tomorrow, the 15th. It's the 14th of April, 2022. I am Mark, your host, coming to you from Baker's Green Acres. Our subject tonight, our topic is keeping your pastured poultry in water. And I don't mean keeping them in water or underwater, anything like that. I mean keeping them watered, keeping them so they have plenty of water, so they'll grow out on you the way you want them to. Okay, what's going on here? Maybe it's the hat. I don't know. All right, got hat head. All right, so it's Thursday. What a day. Very windy and cold here today at Baker's Green Acres. And it wasn't much fun being outside. So the things that I had to do today, I did not enjoy them as much as I would have on a nice day, obviously. But we got through. I had to get into Cadillac today and pick up one of my vehicles. My man van was getting work done today at Spears Automotive in Cadillac. And I want to give out a shout out to the staff there, Aaron and Will at Spears Automotive. They did a really nice job on my van, fix it up. It's an old van. And I had to spend money because it needed some things, but I could not get anything else that would work as good as it does for what I spent on repairs. So it's kind of old. It's 2003. It's not really that old, but got 270,000 miles on it. But those things go on time. I don't feel real comfortable about taking on long trips, but just around town and around the farm, that's fine. It's got a good heater in it. Yeah, probably a pretty good air conditioner in it, though. I haven't had it on in a long time, so I'm not really sure. But you can't beat a Toyota. So I got my van back today, and let's see, what else did I do today? Oh, this morning I was the milk guy today. I had to milk the cows today. So when I went out this morning, I took an inventory of puppies, and I only saw one. We should have two puppies. We should have the new male that we just got a week ago, or let's see. No, 2 weeks ago we got him. And I didn't see him. Didn't see him anywhere. I asked around, hey, has anybody seen Louie? No. Yeah, I saw him this morning, but he wasn't out there right then. All right, we got Ben Carlson with us. Inga's with us. Inga Brummins. And so, I finished my milking. I'm still looking around, not seeing him. Finally, I got in a vehicle and started driving around. Still don't see him. We had a grader on the road. He was going up and down the road, working the gravel over. And the dogs were barking a little bit. But so I go out to the road. I didn't see tracks on the road or anything. And finally, I come in and say, hey, I don't know where Louie is. I'm not finding him anywhere. So the kids all come out. They start looking. We comb this place. Could not find little Louie. And then I got a phone call, and it got to be almost lunch, and Rachel out that I found him. So he was gone for about 3 hours. And I felt deep inside that, we've lost that. I love that puppy. And now he's gone. And I thought, well, maybe somebody was driving by and he was in the road or something like that, and they picked him up. But nope, he crawled in between the hay bales and he was way back in there. And Rachel got up on top of the bales and was looking down. There he is. So we got him. And by the time I got to him, his tail was wagging. He didn't even know he was missing. He was just asleep for a long time. that kind of turned into a, a moment of rejoicing for me. The other thing that happened today that is, and I'm about it. Well, there was two things actually. I went to homeschool yesterday together every other week at a church up in town. Really surprised at how many cars there were in the parking lot, and I went in, and there could have been 100 kids in there. It's a pretty good, and I was there because the teacher that was teaching Hatchet, that's what she calls it. They're reading the book, The Hatchet, and she wants to do like woodland skills. Asked me if I would come and teach a couple of knots. And I said, sure, I don't mind that. I know a bunch of knots. I was a Boy Scout, so I know lots of knots. And so I went and I did the knots and wound up, there was like a session that I didn't have anything to do. Me and Jill were just standing in the lobby, and we were talking to the lady who is the director of this group. And we were just talking about things, and my usual philosophy on things. And she said, would you mind if we came out to the farm for a field trip? And at first I was like, yeah, I guess so, but 100 kids, that's a lot of kids. And so I said, yeah, okay, let me think about it. And I gave her a card, and we had a nice conversation. Well, she called today and she said, we really want to do that. We really want to come out and see what you're doing out there and turn the kids on to the whole sustainable agriculture thing. And so that was a real boost for me today. As I was milking, I was thinking, you know what, this would be the right thing to do. It would really probably be a lot of fun. And there's a bunch of people that don't even know that we're here. And they're right in our own backyard. And the homeschool group are the future's trigger pullers. They really are. They are taught to survive in this world. And the class that I was teaching knots to, there was some real sharp kids in that class, real sharp. So I thought it was the thing to do. Anyway, that happened to me today. I thought I'd pass it on. The other thing was I got a introduction to a man by the name of Scott Kesterson. And I've told you guys about Scott Kesterson before. I used to be, well, it's when we first started the show. Well, maybe not when we first started, but maybe we were into it 6 months or so. And I found this guy on the internet. I listened to a lot of different commentators on things, and I liked him. His name is Scott Kesterson, and his web address is Bards FM, BARDS FM, Bards FM. And he does a podcast, I believe, daily. He used to do even more than that. And he just got a slightly different take on things than anybody else. He's a GI like me. I think I'm pretty sure he's younger than me, but he did a stint in Afghanistan as a civilian embedded with Marines, I think. And I think he's a Marine. I'm not sure. I'm really not sure. No, Army. He's Army National Guard. And very interesting stories, very interesting take on what went on in that war. His point of view is different than a lot of people's, and I've really enjoyed listening to him. And he has a lot of courage in that he calls it like he sees it, and a lot of his views are not popular, but I really like him. But anyway, I got an introduction to him, I guess yesterday, and he sent me a text. He says, is there a convenient time to call? And I said, hey, anytime. And he called me in about 10 minutes And I sat right here and had about an hour-long conversation with him about all kinds of stuff. And he invited me to come on his show uh, next Tuesday at 9 o'clock. It's going to be taped, right? So I'm not sure when it will air, but I'll let you guys know. But Bards has been one of my go-to channels to listen to and get kind of the straight poop on things. And I think that as time has gone by, uh, our missions, his mission and my mission, have intersected. So he said he was real interested in what we're doing, and instead of trying to get the politicians to get their act together, we just need to kind of take control of things. We got to secure our own food, secure our own neighborhoods, secure our own political positions that are available in our neighborhoods. We have to do that. We have to secure our own hospitals because we can't allow them to continue. And we probably need to build our own schools because the state schools are unbelievably weird right now. Unbelievably weird. The things that they want to teach your kids. It's beyond weird. It's disgusting what they want to teach your kids. So you're not going to get those people to change, so you just separate yourself from them. That's all you can do. But anyway, I thought that was kind of neat, actually getting to talk to this guy after all this time. And he actually said, "Hey, you know what? I've been watching your videos. Who's doing your video work for you?" And I almost wanted to say, I'm not telling because I don't want to lose Joe. But we did get invited to a speaking thing out in Oregon. And I may do that. It's just a question of logistics, right? I hate flying, and I haven't flown since before the Wu flu, and I always get singled out whenever I am in an airport. I get singled out, and I just don't want to do it. But it's way too far to drive. It's like 2 days solid driving, so I would be pretty beat up after all that time. So I guess I would have to fly, which I just don't want to do. So we're kicking it around. Hopefully they'll tell me, no, we don't pay you, and you got to pay your own way. And then I'll say, oh, well, that's okay. I guess I'm not coming. But they're probably going to sweeten the deal. So maybe not, though. I don't know. I'm not sure what kind of outfit this is, honestly. All right. So let's see. Ben Carson is saying a couple inches of snow and wind up in the UP. Bummer. You think we're done, and then you find out we're not done. So the seed exchange is this Saturday, day after tomorrow. Tomorrow's supposed to be kind of nice, but maybe it's changed. I mean, the weather changes a lot, and let's see. So tomorrow's going to be a high of 39, and that was today. And it's not nice out right now, I can tell you that, because it's blowing. Tomorrow's going to be a high of 39 as well. Doesn't say anything about wind. Saturday is going to be a high of 34. So I think we're planning on using the house, which I don't like to do because there's way too many people in the house. And then if there's kids, they just go in and up, and I hate that. But we'll try to do what we can to make it a good time. Saturday, yeah, 34 degrees. Bummer. Okay, we got Crunchy Mama with us. Crunchy Mama, I wonder if I answered your question while I got you here. He asked me, Sean Kelly. Okay, I did answer it. Sean was asking, it's kind of funny how, our paths cross people that we know or have known. Brian Polson is the author of the book Charcuterie, and that's the book that we use as a textbook for our classes, right? And I've met him when we first got the pigs. He came up here to see the pigs, and then he came here for the original uh, homestead hog harvest, which back then was called pig stock. But then after that, I never seen him again because the whole pig stock thing was kind of commandeered from Baker's Green Acres, and it was taken to a different venue that made no sense at all for the discipline of raising these pigs and slaughtering these pigs. Made no sense at all, but that's what happened. So I never saw Brian again. I talked to him one time on the phone, but that was it. So I don't know. But now Sean Kelly out in Dallas Fort Worth has crossed paths with him, and he wants Sean to do a kill and chill on a pig, and then he's going to do some chefing thing on it. And Sean wanted to know, should I do a really good job or just an adequate job? And I said to him, hey, I mean, my attitude on that is, I mean, Brian Polson's a well-known chef, right? You can't go wrong by doing a super job on that pig. So when he sees it, he says, hey, this is almost as good as the way Mark Baker does it, right? Maybe. I don't know. I got kind of a cool story about Brian Polson, though. One time, actually two of them. One time, he called me and he says, hey, I need a pig. And I was like, all right, what do you want? And he told me what he wanted. And it was for an event they were doing at the school where he teaches. He teaches at Schoolcraft College, or at least he did back then. I don't know if he still does. And so I got a pig in, got it killed, and they wrapped it up. And then I brought it home, and I had it here in our cooler. And then it needed to be transported down to Livonia, which is where Schoolcraft College is, I believe, which is quite a ways away. It's like Detroitish. And the company that I was working with at the time, they're a distribution outfit here in Traverse City. I'm not with them anymore, haven't been for a lot of years, but they fancied themselves as big time distributors of fine products, and so I called them and I said, hey, you want to run this down to Livonia, and charge Polson for it? And they were like, well, transporting raw meat, we better check on that to make sure it's okay. I said, what do you mean it's okay? Just throw the thing in a truck and drive it down there. But no, they have to check with this organization and this organization and this organization. Meanwhile, Polson needs that pig tomorrow, and they're dawdling, and they're not getting it done. And I just said, I'm going to put it in the van and go. So me and my daughter Dorothy got in the van with this pig, put it in a cooler, put some ice around it, and went. And somebody from the company called me to say, well, we're not sure if we're going to be able to do it. And I said, forget it. I'm on the road. I'm an hour into the trip. Don't worry about it. And then I got another call from this other guy that I was kind of partners with on this whole project. And he said, you may have gone too far this time. Like, what? Like they wanted me to wait until I had been given the green light from this distribution company to transport something to somebody who's buying it from me. And I just like, the heck with you guys. I'm not waiting. So I just took it. And then when I got home that night, I mean, it was no big deal. I took it down there. I didn't see Polson on that trip, but I took it down. I dropped it off, pushed it in his cooler, come back home. No big deal. Me and Dorothy had a good time. But I couldn't resist. Somebody from the company had emailed me and said, did everything go all right? And I couldn't resist but spinning a yarn that would just put hair on your back. I said, well, it was all going swell until I hit a deer down about, I gave the name of a town. I forget what it was. And I said, well, the deer didn't get killed, but it got wedged in between the front wheel and the fender well. So I was out there with my Leatherman trying to cut its throat, and a state trooper pulled over and ordered me to stop, but I didn't, and so he tased me. And then I wound up in the back seat of this police car. Dorothy got sick and threw up near the pig, so I had to take my shirt off and wipe it all down. And this crazy story, just made no sense. This story made no sense. And I thought that they would say, oh, so the trip went okay, huh? But they didn't. I never heard anything back. I did this like late at night, and I took a shower, went to bed. And then I had a meeting the next day with these guys about pig stock 2011. Pig stock 2010 was the original pig stock that was done here at Baker's Green Acres. And I had a meeting with them about 2011. The next day, I had to drive up to their place, of course. And I go in there, and the number 2 guy in charge comes up to me. He shakes my hand. He says, "Are you doing okay?" And I was like, "I think so. Yeah, fine. What do you mean?" He says, "Well, that ordeal that you told us about, that was really something." And I was like, "Are you kidding? I made that up. I was just kidding you." And I could just see his face drop. And here again, I'm used to dealing with other GIs, and there's a level of kidding, and you make up this story that's so outlandish, and you figure they're going to know that you made it up, and it was just a way of you saying everything went fine, Anyway, and they had told the story to one of the instructors that was at a college up there. And it had gotten around to the students what had happened. And of course, the story got even better, when it was retold. And my little partner on this was on a business trip. He likes to go to China to, and he got an email about it in China. They had forwarded it to him. So he's all upset about the whole thing. And so I think it was at that point they said, hey, you know what? We don't understand how this guy thinks. We've got to separate from him. So that's really where the break happened, because pig stock that was done here 2010 was an absolute success. Brian Polson was here for that. We had a blast. I mean, everything went good. There were actually 4 James Beard Award nominees at the class. That's where we came from. And then when it was commandeered and taken away, they turned it into an event sort of thing, like a wine tasting thing. And they weren't having serious people come. They were having people who wanted to party come. And they wound up charging $1,500 for the 3 days, like they were going to make big bucks. And it finally went away because they weren't getting people who were going to carry on the tradition. They were just rich people that had nothing better to do, drop $1,500 on a class and wind up not ever touching the pig, had no intention of ever doing the thing, right? So anyway, it petered out, but that was kind of a funny story. There was one other thing too. Well, I can't think of it right now. But Polson's quite a guy. You'll have fun with him. Now, Polson, he didn't know about that whole thing. That didn't involve him. That's just, I mean, he may have heard about that. I don't know. And I don't know if those guys thought I was trying to be malicious and lying. It was just a fun yarn is what it was. It's sort of like one of those things where at the end of this crazy story that you tell, you say, and then I died, right? But they didn't get that. It's just the military world is completely different than these guys. And especially this group of people, this distribution outfit that I was working with, they were a bunch of snowflakes. I mean, you couldn't raise your voice with them, right? They just a bunch of babies. All right. We got David Wood with us. How much wood could a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck could chuck wood, David? I used to have a friend named Woody, and my grandfather would say that to him. How much wood could a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck could chuck wood? Brittany's with us. Andy, get in here, some Walt. Keith. Debbie Van Fossen. All right. Justin. The Z. Okay, Brittany. Mark, do you move your brooder once you put your meat birds in the chicken tractor? Yeah. That's a question from the other night. But yeah, Brittany, that's the idea of having no floor in the brooder. So when we evacuate the chicks that are in there when they're about 3-4 weeks old. Of course, now they're going to be a little older this time of the year here. I don't know about you over there in Minnesota, but we had snow spitting down on us today. But then once they're out of the brooder, then I can pull it forward one position or so, maybe a little more, and the ground that will be under it will be clean. It's actually in the backyard right now. It's about 20 steps from the back door, but that's just because of this time of the year. But then I will move it out to very close to where the chicken tractors are, which is way out on the other side of the grow area. So it's a 4-minute walk from here. How about train enjoyed? Debbie's saying, Mark, how about train enjoyed? No comprendo. How about train? I don't get it, Deb. Yeah, Andy, you couldn't find it last night because there will be no more Wednesday night. We're deleting Wednesday night. I got to do that. There's going to be more information to come on this, but it's deleted. So the show at this point will be 4 days. Yep, it will not be Wednesday nights. Dave Smith. Oh, take the train instead of flying. I don't know. Do they have a train that goes over to Oregon? Maybe I should check on that. Maybe that would be. I didn't really think of that. The last time I took a train, I did it just, to see what it was like being on a train, and wow, that was not a good experience. I was on the train with a bunch of people that I did not want to be on that train with. But maybe going to Oregon, it would be better. I don't know, but maybe I should look into that. All right. So tonight we want to talk about watering systems for your chicken tractors and your chicken brooder too. How about taking the train to Oregon? I have taken to Montana from Ann Arbor. And was it good? Was it a good experience? And does it go fast? Does it get you there quicker than driving? I would imagine you could sleep on it too, huh? Yeah, maybe we'll look into that. That might be kind of fun, actually. If it was like sitting in a bus seat for 24 hours, I could handle that. I think flying sucks. It just absolutely sucks. And I think that, my friend Devin is explained it as the excuse my language, but the dipshit factor. And it's just like COVID has allowed the poor performers to become even more lackadaisical. So, like, if you thought you had poor service before, now you have really poor service, because everybody's in a bad mood and just testy and everything. And, it's like, well, I don't have to smile. I don't have to be nice. I don't have to do anything because COVID. So that's why I'm apprehensive about flying. I never did well with flying anyway. I try to make eye contact with no one. Just because if you do, it's like they single you out. I don't know. I've been frisked and prodded and poked and called up to the front of the airplane. I don't say a word, and I'm the one with the military ID in my pocket. I try not to do anything. Oh, you liked it, huh? Maybe we'll look into that. That might be kind of neat. Take a train. Ooh, ooh. I bet they let you take your rifles on the train in case you want to shoot a buffalo out the window. All right, so we're going to talk about watering systems. when you're talking chickens and you're talking pastured poultry or any kind of poultry, really, water is a very, very important component. I would say it is probably the most critical component, because if you do not have it, you go critical right now. And then trying to come back from that can be very difficult too. Okay, so we've talked about this a lot. We always have new people in. Um, when you have a group of chickens, let's say you've got 25 chickens, and they run out of water, all that happens in their head is there's no more water in the pit, and all they can think about is water. And then you show up and you put water in there after they've been out, and they may not have even been out of it very long. Then they mob the water. They act very irrational, and they go after the water, and they'll be, climbing up on each other, and the ones that are underneath can be smothered to death, and it can be a really bad situation really quickly. And the only way that you can alleviate that is to pull them back and only allow a few of them to get water. When those ones are completely full, hopefully they'll go to the back of the line, hopefully, but so you're constantly pulling them back and keeping them from piling around the water. So you do not want that to happen. Therefore, you do not want to run out of water. So you want to be on a watering schedule with however you're going to supply water to your chickens. However you're going to do that, you want to make sure that they don't run out. If they do run out and you've got enough trough space to accommodate every single chicken that you have, then it won't be a problem, because they'll all have their space. They'll all be able to get right to their space, get their drink of water, and then go. So in theory, it'd be like you've got a bunch of people sitting at tables, and you put a glass of water in front of each one of them simultaneously, and they drink their own water. But if you've got, a table full of people that haven't had anything to drink in a while, and you put one glass of water in front of this guy, everybody goes to try and get his glass of water. And then it's hard to put your glasses down so everybody's got one. That's what happens with chickens. And I'd say they're probably worse than cows when it comes to that. Cows, you can kind of back off. Chickens, they just keep coming. All right, so you don't want that to happen. What you really don't want to have happen is for them to go without water for any length of time. And I'll relate a story to you that's really bad that happened to us. And one of the things that we want to talk about is disaster avoidance. And your disasters surrounding water are probably the worst ones, right? Because let's say that you have a situation like that. You go and do evening chores, and you find, oh, they don't have any water. You put a waterer in, the first one in, let's say like we've got 250 of them out here, so there's 4 waterers in there, and each waterer holds a gallon and a half of water. So you put the waterers in, and they mob the waterer, and a bunch of them get wet. And then it's evening, it's going to be night soon, it cools off. Then what happens? You get birds that are cold, so what do? They climb up on their buddies, and their buddies are cold, so they just sit there, and they get smothered. So you come out in the morning and you find this pile of birds that is just slimy and wet and hot because they've been slept on all night long. It's terrible. They're sticky, and it's just bad. And once you have that happen, you'll never forget it. It's happened to me, a lot. But we've raised a lot of birds on this farm, so and every time it happens, I kind of realize that I could have probably avoided that. So we've done several different types of watering systems. We started out with just the type of waterers that you fill that take maybe a gallon and a half, and then we had the 5-gallon ones, and you fill them with water, and then you have to lift them down in there, and that can be a tricky situation too, because as soon as they see you coming, they race to be the first ones to drink, and then all of a sudden, hey, there's no place for me to put this thing down. And so you push them out of the way. You got the water in one hand, and you try to push them out of the way with your foot or the other hand, and you go to put it down, and you're like, gee, I don't know if there's one under that or not. So you pick it back up, and they all go under it. It can be really a frustrating thing. You run over the other side, and they run over, and it can be a frustrating deal with water. So what we did it that way for a lot of years. But what that means is you've got to either go out to the chicken field, collect up all those waterers, bring them back to some place where you can kind of clean them up and fill them, and then take them back and install them into the chicken tractor or brooder. And now you're talking some time. You're talking some real time. Let's say that it's a 4-minute walk back to wherever you're going to clean them up and refill them. And to do that cleaning and refilling takes you 15 minutes. Then you got to walk them back out there. Well, now you've got all these waterers. Oh, you're going to have to put them in a wheelbarrow. And so now you're talking some real time. It's turned into a job. And when that's the case, you're eating up your day, right? Just to maintain them with water. So then maybe, okay, we can do this better. We'll stretch a hose out there, and we'll do that work right out there. That makes a lot of sense. I'm going to have to close this door. Stand by a minute. They're throwing dishes around out there pretty good. So I'm going to have to close this door just a sec. All right, so you stretch a hose out. Oh, nice and quiet. Wow. And you've got a little workstation there where you can clean up the waterers, maybe have a scrubby out there, and the hose is on, and maybe you have a squeeze handle on it with a valve that you can shut it off. That's better. That's better. I've been there, and you're able to clean your waters up, get them sanitized. I don't think you need to go through the process of actually bleach watering them and that. I don't do that, and I don't even recommend that. It's a little overkill, and you create a vacuum, and then other things are going to rush in. So I don't think that's actually a good idea. But I don't like a water that's got manure on it, and it needs to be scrubbed off, you know, and maybe soap will help you to do that. Maybe you won't need to, but I think that needs to happen. So that's a slightly better situation. And then there are what they call bell waterers. And these are they look like a bell, and they're about this big around, probably a foot in diameter. And they need to be fed with a tube. And so usually what guys will do is they'll take a 5-gallon bucket, they'll place it on top of the chicken tractor, and then run a hose down to the waterer. And there's all kinds of different configurations that you can use. They come, when I bought them, they came with a plastic line, and that plastic line was clear. And then in the bell water itself, it had a float mechanism that would shut the valve off as soon as the bell was full of water. And there was quite a bit of trough space on that because it was like a foot in diameter. So it'd be probably the circumference, I'm not sure what it was, but it'd probably be close to 2 feet in, around the outside of trough space. And we went with those for a long time, but you have to stay on top of them. And they're notorious for plugging, notorious. And why do they plug? All right. The line that goes from the bucket down to the bell waterer must be opaque. It must be either black or brown, but you can't have any sunlight getting in there because then the water that's in there will algae up and it will plug the valve assembly. So you're constantly cleaning it out to prevent malfunction, right? And it's malfunctioning because either the valve plugs open, in which case all the water runs out, and then the birds are like, hey, there's no water, or it plugs shut and no water runs into it. And not a good situation. Another factor that would lead to that plugging up is you've got this open bucket sitting up there on top of the chicken tractor, and sparrows are notorious for coming over, landing on the bucket to try and see, okay, there's some feed that's been spilled. And it's just a nice place for them to sit, and they're either facing into the bucket or out of the bucket. So there's about a 50% chance that they're going to manure into the water. And when they do, now you've got wild bird manure that you're watering your animals with. So it's not a good situation. And then the inside of the bucket after a while gets kind of grungy, and you've got to drain it all out and wash it and then put it back in service clean. Now, this might all seem like, oh, well, that's nothing. But let's say that you've got 30 chicken tractors going, and you've got 2 of them that have malfunctioned, and they malfunctioned last week, and now you're like, what the hell's wrong with this thing? And, it can get to be pretty tedious if you have a watering system that's not really solid, right? It's not really solid. So we operated with that for quite a few years. I would say probably about 4 years. And then I had the bright idea of building a waterer with my own float valve in it. And I found a valve that was at a plumbing supply place. The valve was $24, and then it had a rod coming off that had a float on it, a plastic float, sort of like you'd see in the back of a toilet. And then we built a trough, and the trough was built out of PVC pipe, 4-inch PVC pipe, that we cut a groove on the top so that, the chickens could access the water that was in there. And this valve was foolproof. I mean, this valve worked really good. And then we would hang that from inside the chicken tractor, and voila, we had water that was flowing in there. And then I thought, hey, well, why couldn't I hook this up to the system water pressure on the farm, and then I'd have a continuous flow of water into this trough, right? That's made sense. And so I did that. And at that time, I didn't realize that clear plastic water line was going to get green on the inside, and then it would just algae up. It would just get worse and worse until a big slug of it would flow down and it would plug up that valve as well. And I didn't realize that I could prevent that with a different color line until all I could get was a different color line. And I noticed a different color line. At first, I was getting this stuff. Let's see. Can't really see it against the background. Oh, there you can. At first, I was getting this stuff, and it was dark brown. And that's all I could get. And then I realized, hey, no light's getting in there, so there's no algae growth. Right? So you do not want to use clear plastic line. You do not want to use like white opaque plastic line. I wouldn't even use like a light colored line. I would go with black or brown or dark brown. They seem to both work good. Like that. Get my tattoo here soon. So then with that watering system, we actually plumbed it in to the system pressure on the farm. And what that did, that I, looking back on now, that saved me so much time, because now the water is flowing out there. It's, the chickens are drinking just as much as they did before. The water is somewhat in a closed system where it can't get contaminated as it was getting contaminated when it was in the white bucket, right? And then there's not a lot of maintenance on it, So then from that waterer, the problem with that water is we were building them 3 feet long, and you had a 4-foot piece of PVC with a cap on both ends, and it was full of water. Well, it weighed quite a bit. What's a pound of water weigh? So it's probably 6. Where's Jack when you need him? Who knows what a pound of water is? Justin knows what a pound of water is. What's a pound of JP? Andy knows that. What's a pound of JP? JP is jet propulsion, but it's less than water. Water's heavier. I think it's 8 pounds. But if you have two pounds of water in there, or 2 gallons of water in that feeder, in that waterer, now you're talking 16 pounds. That's hanging from the tractor. So when you go to move it, now you've got a heavier assembly, and it's tough on the structure because it's weighing on it. And those waterers, we used white PVC, and those waterers started to algae up on the inside really bad because they were white. Yeah. So all right, Crunchy, thanks. 8.33 pounds per gallon. All right, cool. Sean, you knew that. You had that right on the edge of your tongue, your little computer. So then I found these, and I just came across these in a catalog, and I showed you this one the other night. This one is one that did not get washed out at the end of the season, so you can see that it's pretty grungy inside. And I needed one just for demonstration purposes, so I just grabbed this one. But when we got this was bright red, like this color right here. It was a lot brighter than that. They use red because you don't get the algae buildup in it, and the chicks are attracted to it. And you may think, wow, that's a pretty small waterer for 75 birds. That's what I thought. And when I bought these, I first installed 2 of them. And I was thinking as many as 4 per chicken tractor that I would install. But then I found that, hey, this water is full all the time. So this has got a float on it. It's got a valve, actually. And this valve, if you look at that valve, will you look at that valve? What is that valve? That is an air valve, like a tire valve. That's exactly what it is. So we can take this out. We can screw that out with a tire tool and put a new one in with a new seat on it. Of course, they really don't wear out. They work really well. And when this is in the down position, like it is right now, it's what they call normally closed. It's normally closed, and it's got this spring right here. And when there is no water in here, then the spring pushes it open when there's no water in it. All right. So in the configuration it is right now, it would be pushed open. But then when it fills with water and this comes down a little bit, just a little bit, it seats that valve and shuts the water off. Really neat. So every time a chick takes a drink out of here, it refills whatever that chick drank. So these things are always full, right? So when we load a chicken tractor, this is full. And the chickens say, I think I'll get a drink. They go over and get a drink, and then they go sit in the corner or have something to eat. I think I'll get another drink. They come back. But they're not all like, we got to get something to drink. They're not rushing it because it's full, right? So there's a psychological effect here with the chickens. And then these are very solid. I mean, I endorse these for sure. This assembly was about 25 bucks when I bought it. It's got to be 10 years old. So I don't even know what they go for now because I had 30 chicken tractors that I was running at the time I got these. And so for a while I had quite a few of these around, and we've used them. Some of them I sold, because I didn't need that many. But I probably have 10 of them around, and if one of them goes down for one reason or another, I've got a replacement, and then I can bring this one in the shop. These parts on this waterer, they don't look it, but this is all brass, right? And so brass, if you guys have played with this, you can put some brass cleaner on this and you can brighten that up so it looks like it's brand new. And the bowl is, it's some sort of plastic. I'm not sure what kind of plastic it is, but it's very tough. So these things are bulletproof. Once you've got them up and running, if they're going to fail on you, usually what they do is they run over, which, hey, a little bit of wasted water, it's not really a waste. It's going on the ground. The chickens are watered. So if it's going to fail on me, I want it to fail in the direction of safety, which it does. They're extremely reliable. And let's say if that assembly cost you $40 to install, how much time do you save if you don't have to fill some sort of tank, take it out to the field in a vehicle or a wheelbarrow and water like that? How much time do you save? I don't care if you had one chicken tractor. With this configuration, you turn the water on, you hook it to a hose, and that's it. You don't do anything else the rest of the summer. That chicken tractor has water in it, full service all the time, cold, clean. These waterers do not algae up on the inside. This one may appear to be a little dirty, and it is, but it's just I don't know. It's almost like it's mud that's in there. But once in a while, just with my hand, just with my fingers, I will, wipe them out, and just the roughness of my hands will act like a scrubby. And then you let a little water run in, you swish it around and dump it, and it's like it's clean. You know, I I don't sanitize them with bleach or anything like that. It's just not necessary. I think you want a bird that is tough, and if they have to do, if their immune system has to do a little work, it toughens them up. It seems like. So I don't think you want to overdo it with the cleanliness. So where do I get these parts? I get the water. I got that from Stromberg's, but it's a Little Giant, and I think if you check online, you can find Little Giant products, and you can get them. Now this is for chicks that are going in the brooder. They make one. I mean, going into the chicken tractors outside. They make these where the bowl on it is way smaller and way shallower. This, if you let chicks in to this, they will jump in there, and you'll find like 6 of them in there that have drowned. They're pretty dumb animals, and they'll just jump in the water if they get the chance. Like, you never want to leave a bucket with water in it in the brooder or even near the brooder, because some dumb chicken will jump in there and drown himself. I don't know why they do it. We had a puppy do that one time too, in a bucket of whey, right? So Jill would make cheese, and then the byproduct of that is whey, and then she sets the whey out, and then I take the whey and I will soak something with it and then give it to the pigs. It does not go to waste. And it was sitting out by the back door, and one of the puppies came over and was up on it and couldn't lap down in there far enough. And so he climbed up a little higher, and then he fell right into it, face first. And once his back feet were sticking out, he couldn't regain control, and the bucket was too small for him to turn around in. He was too big, and he drowned, and Keith found him dead. So that's something to think about. You don't need that happen. Aha! Debbie is saying that water is 8.33 pounds. Sean is saying that water is 8.33 pounds. So we have consensus. That means we have a scientific analysis going on here. Okay, Crunchy Mama is saying here, this is interesting to me. I once built a water tower so we could go on vacation. Had to make it simple so my friend could drain the elevated tank into the cattle trough. 8.33 pounds per gallon is seared into my memory. Oh, okay. Okay. Okay, current schedule for Amtrak from Ann Arbor, Michigan to Whitefish, Montana. So they don't go out to Oregon, huh? They must be racists. They're racist against people from Oregon. Yeah. Probably gay. Too bad. Too bad. All right, so we get a lot of these parts for the drip end of it. Okay. Oh, they do. I was trying to answer. Oh, Angus' question. All right. I probably need to keep my nose out of it, Debbie. Just mind my own business here. So in a lot of the things that I do, I'll get a hold of a box or something, and I make a kit out of it, right? So, like, all of my PEX fittings are in a kit. All of my staples are in a kit. All of my terminals are in a kit. So if I got to do a connection job, I'll just grab a terminal kit. and go and do it. And so I have this box that I scrounged. There was a Sawzall in it, so it's just the box. The Sawzall was not working, and so I ditched it a long time ago. But in this box, I have a bunch of drip irrigation parts. If I can somehow do this, and I'm going to show them to you. So here's some of the line. Oh, great. What did I do? I don't know what I did. I touched the mouse. I swear I touched it, and it's changed everything. Wonderful. Oh, well, I've got the chat down here below. Oh, now what did I do? Huh. It's great. Yeah, you don't want to touch that mouse. That'll launch nuclear missiles. Okay, here's some of that capillary tubing. I get this stuff in. I got a 1,000-foot roll last summer. Joe got for me because you can run this stuff every place, and it's really super cheap. Then there are fittings that go on it. This is an inline fitting. It's just a barb fitting. I'll show you how they work. Once you get these fittings on, you have to cut them off. You have to cut them off. But it's not a big deal. You should have a knife on you or a Leatherman at all times. And that's what the end looks like once I've cut it off. Okay, this is a double barbed fitting. And I think these things cost about 4 or 5 cents. So I get them in packs of 100. Okay. So that is a union. All right, that's a union. If I got to hook 2 of these end to end, I would just be pushing this into that. And to push them in, you know, they don't want to go in very easy. So usually what we'll do is this rubber here, this neoprene, when it's cold, it's really hard to push them in. So all you do is just bite them. And then the heat of your mouth makes it easy. And then you can very easily push them right in. And once you push them in, that barb prevents you from pulling them out. They're very hard to pull out. Okay? So that's some of the stuff that you can get. The other things that you can get from Dripco is these little units right here. These are drippers. Let's see. That's not a good representation. Let's see if I can get one that's out of the... Nah, none of them are out of the bag. So I'm going to pull one out of the bag here. And they come in different numbers on the dripper. Like this one is... This one is a 0.5. So what that means is this dripper, when it's connected up, and it varies. You would think it would vary with system pressure, but it really doesn't. So long as you have about 30 pounds of pressure on this, this will only put out a half a gallon in an hour. Right now, a dripper like this would be used not in watering livestock, because watering livestock, they need as much as they need when they need it, and they know that. But a dripper like this, if I want to turn an irrigation system on, let's say on a bush, and I don't want to, run a hose on it, but I put a dripper on it like this, it's going to get a half a gallon every hour. So I know that if I left it on for 10 hours, I'd be putting 5 gallons of water on that bush. And, you know, that's kind of nice. You're not going to put a hose out there and just run it, because a lot of times what happens when you're watering a bush or something or a tree is it'll start to make a channel, and then all the water will go down that channel, and it doesn't really soak the entire area. So, and I know that these little emitters is what they're called. They're not really pertinent to the conversation that we're having right now, but that's just some of the stuff that you can get. This right here, this is a mister, right? So you put this on a neoprene line. See, it's got a barb fitting. It's got a barb fitting right there. Oh, no, that's not a barb fitting. Yes, well, it's not a barb fitting, but it operates like a barb fitting. It's actually got tiny little threads. Wow. Tiny little threads. See that? And you put it on here and you just twist it in and it just threads right in. It's sort of like their you know, their A plan and their B plan. And these work good too. They don't blow off. You can't pull them off. They work really good. And this mister has a valve on it, so I can put it at full mist, you know, or I can turn it down to where it will it'll spit, depending on what you want to do. Now, these come in handy in pastured poultry in areas like Alabama where it's extremely hot. You may want to get a mister going in that chicken tractor just to cool the birds down. Like, we don't have the problems here that you would have in, say, Alabama with heat. We'll have a hot period in the summer for maybe 2 weeks where it's pretty uncomfortable, hard to sleep at night and stuff. But down where you're at, Andy, it's a little bit more intense, and you've got to figure out a way to keep those birds cool, which I want to talk about. Might as well talk about it now. Okay, so what has happened here in the past is it happened the first time. Some people that we knew from Montana pulled in the driveway in a camper, and it was like, we're here. We didn't know you were coming, but we got to talk, and it was great to see him and everything. Really, really hot day. It was in July, really hot. And so we said, hey, let's get out of here. Let's go up to the lake, go swim and cool off. Yeah, right. Let's do it. This was probably a Thursday, and we were supposed to butcher the next day, right? And so I figured, well, when we get home, we'll wait until the sun goes down. We'll go out and we'll pick up the birds that we're going to be butchering the next day. Well, I go out there, and even in the dark, I was like, something's not right here. And as I looked closer, the 4 chicken tractors that we were supposed to butcher, they were dead. Like 4 tractors with 75 birds in each one, and they were big, and they were all dead. And we were like, what's the story here? Because there was chicken tractors down from them that were not dead. And as we started to kind of mull this through and think it through, the guy that was taking care of the chickens at that time, in our family member, I won't mention his name, owned up to it and said, yeah, they didn't have water all day yesterday. It plugged up. And this was at the time when we were using clear plastic lines, and we were having major issues with algae in the lines. And so they didn't have water, and it was super hot. And what they do is, to alleviate themselves from the extreme heat, they bunch up, and it just creates more heat. If they leave a little space in between each of them and that, but they don't. Chickens, they defeat what they should be doing. And so we had a lot of dead chickens. It was heartbreaking, actually. That much chicken, you know, that we had to um, pass on. And at the time, it got worse because at the time I thought, well, we have insurance. Maybe we should claim these on insurance. But I was very naive at that time. And so what I did was I took those chickens and I moved them down to this shade tree that we had down, and we put them down there, keep them out of the sun. Well, they degraded very quickly. I mean, it was just like the very next day, it was just horrid. And we realized that, hey, we're not going to make an insurance claim because, you know, we'd really been hoodwinked on a lot of the insurance that we did purchase from our friendly insurance man. Because when we tried to collect on it, they were like, oh, no, not that type of livestock, you know. Oh, no, it has to be you know, they'd put some qualifier on it why they couldn't help it. But, you know, if you were late on your payment, oh boy, they'd be calling you on the phone. We need that money. We need that money. And so, but then they didn't come through. Same thing, like I had insurance, I made a claim, a kid smashed up my tractor. And it was like, oh, well, you know, since it wasn't you driving the tractor, we can't pay it, you know. I mean, they're just thieves. So, okay. Okay. Uh, yeah, it was a tough lesson. But that wasn't the only time that happened. There was another time when it was an almost identical situation, and it was extremely hot, and we left, and when we came back, we found a lot of dead chickens. So then the next time that it happened, usually when it gets really hot like that, it's very still. And that's when the chickens, you know, they're close to the ground. The fields have been cut, so it's been dry for a lot of days. It's actually, when you're walking out there in bare feet, it's actually tough to walk, you know. So I had a brainstorm on this, and what you're going to want to do when that happens, when you know that you're on the brink of disaster. How will you know you're on the brink of disaster with heat and your chickens? Usually it's going to be the chickens that are the oldest that are going to struggle with heat first, usually. Well, that's been my experience up till now. Here, let me take this wallet out of my pocket. There's so much darn money in it. It's making me uncomfortable here. And so you watch their behavior, and they will, when they're in trouble, they put their heads down on the ground and they stretch out, and then they're panting, and you know they're in trouble. They cannot stay like that for very long. You have to do something. So what can you do? We've never done this, but I suppose you could go out there with a bucket of water and you could immerse them in it. That would cool them off. But it has another effect too. It seals up their feathers, you know, so the heat can't get out of their little bodies. So I'm not sure if that's the way to go. I'm really not sure. I've never done that, and I'm not recommending that. So, but what I do recommend is, and I've done this several times, is you get out in front of them, and quite a ways in front of them, let's say about 30 feet in front of them, with a pressure washer. And you put that pressure washer on the biggest dispersal pattern that you have. Do you know what I mean by that? It's the tip that goes on the front. One of them is pointy, like a laser pointer, and then they graduate down to the highly dispersal nozzle that just blows it out like a cloud. And you get out in front of them, and then you spray in their direction. Now, I'm not talking 2 feet from them, to cut their feathers off. I'm talking back far enough where you're not going to blow them over. You just want to create like a microclimate right around them. And then I would walk up and down the line and just keep doing it. And it would cool that area off for a short period of time. And it worked. It worked. I didn't have any big losses. Now, the other night we talked about chicken tractors, building your chicken tractors. Let's see, right here. And on mine, I use a tarp over the top. Now, you don't want to use a dark top. You don't want to use like a black tarp because you'll just be roasting your birds. You want to use white. And that's why even white tin on top, it's a heat maker, right? I mean, you definitely don't want to use green tin or dark red tin. That wouldn't work, because any sunlight that hits that underneath, it's just going to be sweltering. So you're going to want to use white, but I don't even think you want to use tin. I know some people use aluminum. Aluminum's hard to find, sheet aluminum. But even that, it magnifies the heat. So I think a tarp is better, a white tarp. But then you'll get to the point where you're stretching the tarp down and you think, well, I'll just go right to the floor, right to the ground. But don't do it. Don't do it. You always want to leave space all the way around for heat dispersal. And when you're out in front of them with your pressure washer going, I mean, it seems like a hassle, but boy, if you get one of those days that it's extremely hot and it's been extremely hot for like 3 days, and then it's dead still, and it's going to be hot like this tomorrow, and you birds are starting to struggle, you got to do something, or you're just going to lose them, and you don't want to lose them, right before you're going to process them. Another good way is just like, okay, we're processing them right now. Some people don't have the luxury to do that, though. We've not done that because by the time they're in trouble like that, if we were to fire up the line, I don't know, it's a lot easier. I know it's a hassle, but it is a lot less hassle to get out in front of them with the pressure washer. And what happens too, like with our design of chicken tractor, where we have just the tarp over it, both ends are open, it creates a little bit of a tunnel, and it moves that air through there, right? So you're creating a breeze with your pressure washer. And I can't think of anything else that you can do. When you have that number of birds, you can't bring them into the living room, where the air conditioner's going. You really can't. It's the only thing that I can think of that would really work. If somebody has another way to do it, I'd love to hear it. Crunchy's saying they die so easy. They sure do. Okay. Hyperion Ranch. I'm in Washington, and we don't get much extreme heat here. How hot does it get where you are? We're talking 90s or more. Well, we'll get a stretch, like a 2-week stretch every summer where it gets extremely hot. And then, it comes back up to where, yeah, it'll get to be 90 during the day, but then it cools off at night. We'll get a little bit of rain here and there. It kind of moderates. But usually about 2 weeks where we're, in the 90s, sometimes a little, 94-ish, and long days of extreme heat like that. And it's really hard on livestock. It's probably harder than the extreme cold. And it is harder than the extreme cold. Our cows, you see them struggling in the heat, and they have to be able to get in under trees or someplace where they can get a little bit relief from the heat. They usually come in the barn, and they're just laying in the loafing shed where it's in the basement barn, so it's cool. it soaks up a lot of the coolness at night, and then it keeps that. Or they'll go under the trees down in the swamp. They like that. They don't lay in the water though. They won't do that. I don't know. But chickens, they're out on the field and right out in the bright light, and it can be really hard on them. I'm working towards a goal of my top field where I run the chickens. Like if I had that magic wand that you could just make things happen, like a really fat checkbook, I would plant honey locust trees, and I would disperse them about I'd put a line and another line about 30 feet over, and then another line 30 feet over. So I could have a lot of trees up there. And the nature of the honey locust tree is you get some sunlight filtration, but it's not like a maple tree where you'll have bare dirt under it because there's no light getting down through it. The honey locust will let a good percentage of the light through, and it makes it a lot nicer for the cows to be out there because they're in the sunlight, but it's not the direct, just searing heat that can really cause them trouble, and then the honey locust tree is a permanent legume, so it's a nitrogen fixer. So the hayfield is benefiting from that tree being there, and then they grow a large bean, and then the bean drops. The root system of the tree is helpful to the hay production because it holds a lot of the moisture in the soil that the hay can use. So it makes total sense to have a semi-covered hayfield, and the reason I space them at 30 feet is so I could make a 15-foot cut down one side, and you could veer in between trees if you're watching what you're doing. If you don't want to do that, you just miss the trees by a foot, and then when the cows come and graze behind you, they'll take care of it. I think that makes more sense. Take what you need, and then leave the rest for the cows to come through and graze. That makes complete sense to me, right? And then you can get an idea too. If you leave like a 2-foot section right down the middle of the field, cows come out, that they're going to go right there, and then you can kind of watch that go down, and then you say, okay, it's time to move, right? So that's my magic wand. And then while I'm planting those trees, I'm also going to run a ditcher, and I'm going to put in-ground irrigation in. I'll put it under the plow line, and then I'll have just a turnout that will come out that I can drive down there with the man van and have sprinkler heads that I can shunk, put it on, go to the next one, shunk, put it on, and then go back to the irrigation pond, flip on the diesel-powered pump. I don't have it, but I want one. And you'll just watch it, fill that field, that 10-acre field, with rain under the canopy of those trees. And so you'll be watering the trees and the grass after you've taken your hay off of it, so you can, bring it back. And it will just beget life out there. That is one of my goals, is to build a field like that. And also, that's where you can put biochar to use and, just create a really nice, lush environment in the summertime. It would be beautiful to be out there, I would think. All right, so what do we got? All right, I don't see any questions on here. Okay, so I'm done. That was all the topics that I have. By the way, our sponsors tonight are Orphans of the American Dream and Baker's Green Acres. I got something going on here with the computer I can't really figure out here, but okay, that's it. That's it. If you guys have some questions, I will gladly take them on watering your pastured poultry with a closed system. I kind of save this for last. I'm not here to say, oh, this is the only way to do it. I'm just saying this is how I'm doing it now. And it has saved me a ton of time, a ton of fuel, and it's built a reliability factor in. I remember when we were watering out on the field and it was too far out for hoses, or at least what I had at the time, or what I thought at the time. I have water everywhere now on the farm in black plastic pipe. And maybe I should talk about that a little bit too. But at the time, we would have to break off for afternoon chores and use a vehicle. Wow, it's 9:27. Holy smokes. Like the Jeep with a trailer on it and a tank, and then stop by a hydrant, fill it, drive out, and then, fill each bucket. And so it took a lot of time. And let's say it was like, hey, Dad, dinner's ready. And it's like, oh, I got to water the chickens. I'll see you in about an hour. I got to do this before I can sit down. I can't let them go without water. So it was just to keep them alive was requiring a lot of my time. Where now water is okay, we've got it hooked up. See you later. I don't water them the rest of the summer. Not at all. So it's a little bit of an effort to get it up online, but I think that if you just give it a little bit of your time, put together a kit with some parts in it, and learn a little bit about watering systems, learn a little bit about these, maybe just get a couple of these and get a couple 100 feet of this stuff, and then there's fittings that you can adapt from this, or from a regular hose to this. You got to get creative with it. What I have done is taken these barb fittings and adapted them to a replacement end for a hose. You see those things? They cost about $3. They're plastic and they have a clamp. So you cut the end of the hose off and you push these on. They're also barb fittings. But instead of doing that, you just put this in the center of it, and then I used hot glue to fill it in, or shoe goo to fill it in. And they'll last for a long, they don't last forever, but they last quite a long time. Yeah, so that's it. Okay, I don't see any more questions, so I'm going to get out of here. All right, beautiful. Tomorrow night, we're going to be discussing other things having to do with homesteading, farming, and just plain living. I have to give it some thought. But yeah, great news today. I'm going to get to go on Bards. And if you haven't listened to Bards FM, just do a Google search and it'll take you to, I think, Spotify or Podbean, and give him a listen. He's pretty neat, and it'll be pretty neat when I get to go on the show. So we'll see you guys tomorrow. I am out of here. Remember, anyone can farm.